Thank you, Nadia. Yeah, I think my role here today, because of the SwissCollNet project that I'm running in Basel, is to present something on imaging our collections, producing images of our objects. We've seen images of objects before, so what I'm going to say here is pretty basic, I guess. I've been working with that kind of ideas for a relatively short amount of time. So yeah, I'm trying here to give some ideas of why it is interesting to image your collections, what kind of collection units you can image, and yeah, maybe give some recommendations as to, yeah, this is a jungle when you look at the internet. Yeah, what are the formats and so on? What are the fields and that you can use? So I'm giving here some recommendations based on the experience that we've gathered in the past few months. So why would you like to image your collections? There are many advantages of imaging your collections at different levels. It supports your collection management. We've talked here a lot about scientific data, actually, but we are also using these data for managing, or these images for managing our collections. It supports your collection management when you have images. I don't know about you, but we get about 50 visitors in the collections that I work on in Basel per year, 50 visitors per year, 130 days of visits, and many requests from people online. And it's really nice to have pictures to show to the people, to send them and tell them, well, you want to know what you want to know what we have for bears in the Miocene of Europe, and then I can send pictures. It's very quick. And for the visitor, it's really straightforward. Now they know they come here because this material is really interesting. So that's nice to manage your collection work. It facilitates your everyday work. This is what I wanted to say. Facilitate the identification. Maybe you run citizen science projects where you have people working on your collections. Maybe it's nice to have pictures also. You have access to the labels and so on, depending on the collection unit you want to digitize. So it facilitates identification of the objects, of the specimens, facilitates its digitization. It opens new projects. Thanks to all these pictures that were taken in our department, now we have a lot more collaborations with other people who come across these pictures or to which we send these pictures. So they became much more familiar with our objects and ask for research projects. So it serves research purposes also. It improves the long-term conservation because the idea of producing images of your objects, or here trays, for instance, is to limit a little bit the handling of the specimens. So maybe don't touch them so much as before, and limit problems that can happen to them. And it can also serve, but it's not really the main purpose, but it can also serve educational or promotional purposes. If you, I don't know, if you can use these pictures for exhibitions, for instance, if they're really good, or for your educational programs at the museum. I want to stress that we now, in the vertebrate collection in Basel, we have about 5,000 pictures of the trays. We have 5,000 trays or drawers with specimens. Bastien Menekar was here, took all these pictures last year. It was a very quick way of doing it. I'm going to show it afterwards. But it's a big help. I can assure you. What would you like to image? For collection management, I really recommend to image your drawers with your specimens inside. You can then increase the steps and then start taking pictures of the boxes. Here it's on the right for you. Here it's a box with a lot of different teeth of different mammals from a Palaeontology locality. It's interesting. You can zoom in. You can almost identify all of these species based on this very picture. Maybe you want to image your labels. We've seen it before. Label digitization is really interesting for digitizing your specimens in general and the objects also. But there are some slight problems. Some things are very easy to do. You can do it very quickly. Some others are much more time consuming. I'm going to show you at the end of the talk a quick case study of the project we are running now. We've been running for 3 or 4 months. I was too optimistic. you'll see it's not so easy, actually. But yeah, I'm not the first one to realize that digitizing the drawers is a very nice thing. If you look at the literature on imaging collections, you see pretty quickly that digitizing or drawer-level imaging has become the most practical way of unlocking your research potential. So it's really nice. It's really useful. If you get requests from people, well, do it. I really recommend to do it. It's a big help on an everyday basis. How would you like to do it? There are some really fantastic solutions to image your collections. Fancy, expensive, with great devices, taking pictures in 3 dimensions, or automatizing the digitization process, like I think it's in Geneva, up there with the Picture conveyor belt. Great thing, maybe not for everyone, because it's expensive. So I would really recommend to do it how you can. I mean, find solutions that are practical, pragmatic, that fit your purposes, that fit your resources also. That's what I would recommend. Yeah. So sometimes just this thing here, a little light box, is more than enough to capture most of the information on your specimen. And maybe you don't need to go in that direction with fancy devices that cost 100,000 francs or so. It certainly depends on your purpose. What would you like to do? Do you want just to have basic pictures to improve your collection management, or do you want to produce pictures that may be used by researchers also afterwards? So for instance, producing 3D data with internal imaging of specimens, for instance. So you want to CT scan them maybe, but we're a step further there. It's almost producing scientific data, and this is about what you've said, Mathieu, before. I mean, all what you have are scientific data. Actually, you can ask yourself if these scientific data has to be in a database or in a collection management system. It's another question. But you might want to produce this depending on the collection that you have and depending on how visited it is by scientists. So do it how you can and really, yeah, how you want to do it. Don't be shy and don't wait to have a lot of money to buy a conveyor belt or something. There are really straightforward solutions to help you in this task. This is Inselect. It's a small open source software that was made by the Natural History Museum in London. It helps you isolate your specimens on the picture. You take a picture of your drawer, maybe a quick picture of your drawer, and then this thing isolates your different specimens in single pictures. So. Yeah, I just stumbled on this thing on the internet. I found it really practical, a practical solution that can be applied everywhere because it's free and seems to work pretty well. I've got some I've gathered technical recommendations from the different sources. I'm going to give the different sources at the end, and as far as I understood, the talks are going to be given to everyone. So you can. I'm not going to go through everything here. You can look at it afterwards, but I'm giving some technical recommendations for different sorts of images, static images, so normal pictures, or whole drawer images, or 3D images, or even videos and audio files. Maybe you want to take videos or make audio files, recordings, for instance. So there are a bunch of possibilities, a bunch of formats that are recommended for that. Maybe if I go for the 2D static images, go for at least 300 dpi. Raw data files are great because you can use them in Photoshop and change them and modify them as you wish. They're heavy also. JPEGs do the job sometimes. It's enough. Don't try to do art. This is not the purpose, maybe, or maybe sometimes if you want to reuse your pictures in an exhibition, but otherwise don't try to do art, just capture your data. Yeah, you can stack for depth if you want, but sometimes for big specimens, you don't even have to stack for depth. A good picture is enough for collection management. For the labels, maybe you want a little more resolution, of course. You need a homogeneous background maybe, because sometimes you want to crop this data, so it's easier if your background is homogeneous. It's very basic things that I'm talking about here. You wanna have a scale, maybe you wanna have a color scale also. The light box is a nice solution, or LEDs. It's really cool. It's very easy, and it gives you a really nice picture. Yeah, record the rights holder of the picture. The person who did the picture is the rights holder of the picture. So record this, and maybe you can also license your picture under the Creative Commons licenses, so that you can share it afterwards on open source. On the open source scale. Yeah, I'm not going through the others. You can have a look yourself at this slides when the PowerPoint will be given. These are some fields that I could find in this jungle of standards. This is some sort of summary of the different standards: Darwin Core, Audubon Core, which I found really useful. It's a sort of an extension, or it was made before or parallel to Darwin Core and then integrated into Darwin Core. It's specific for multimedia data. There's also the Dublin Core, the ABCD. They have also a lot of recommendations or database fields for image data. So yeah, you have these classes: image objects, still image, or moving image. It's a video, actually sound, or text if you have labels. And then you have the properties. It's about the same thing as what we saw with Holger before, or with others. What Matthew presented just before. There are some fields that you can use for some properties that you can use for all the different images that you can produce. Others are a bit different. For a sound, you have a duration time. For a picture or for a 3D image, you have a pixel size, for instance. If you want to add size data in pixels, for instance, or in megabytes. Yeah, you want to have the date when you did it, you want to have the title, the creator, you want to have access rights, a rights holder, a license, maybe a URL. It's important to trace or to find your picture again. So these are just proposals, very, very quick proposals of database fields that you can use if you produce multimedia data. There are much more, actually. There are hundreds of properties that you can also use if you really want to have spectral sensitivity on your image data in your database. Well, use it, do it. I'm not gonna do it. Yeah, I'm gonna give you a very quick return on the experience that we are gathering together with Tore Friesenhagen, who's here today too. He's working with me on well, he's doing the job actually on the SwissCollNet project, most of the job, taking the pictures, the images. Maybe I can can I do that? Yeah, I'll launch this one. We're generating pictures in 2-3 dimensions for, well, the idea was to produce pictures of about 10,000 specimens across Switzerland. The reference specimens, reference fossil specimens, so holotypes, type specimens, published specimens, or scientifically very important specimens. That was the idea at the beginning. You'll see that maybe we'll have to redimension it a little bit. But there are 12 institutions, included here, 12 partners. It's running over 2 years. It just started in October last year. So we are making really classical pictures of the objects with the label. We are making 3D files. We're CT scanning objects to also have access to internal data. We're making 3D surface scans of the object. So a panel of very different techniques. And this is the problem. This is some sort of mass image production here. 10,000 specimens in a lot of different institutions. The objects are very heterogeneous, from 1 millimeter to several tens of centimeters. There are different techniques: CT scans, surface scans, classical pictures, or microscope photography. Databasing takes a lot more time than I thought. The holotypes, most of the holotypes are already in the database, but many specimens are actually not at all in our digital databases. So you have to create the data from scratch, which takes a long time. So it takes much more time. It doesn't look like much here. I increased a little bit this yellow bar for time. Doesn't look like much, but it takes much more time than we actually expected. Digitizing the labels was, for me, before we started, something very straightforward. It's not that straightforward. You take a lot of time taking pictures of those labels, of writing down what it is, and so on and so forth. So it takes quite a lot of time also. Storage is an issue, but not as much as one can think, actually. When I did this PowerPoint last week, we had about 350 objects or so, 550 gigabytes. It may sound a lot, but there are 50 CT scans in there, and CT scans of one object can reach 40 gigabytes each for one object. So it's not that much, 1.5, 1.6 gigabyte per object. This is something you can still handle, actually, on average. This is something you can really still handle. If we had 10,000 specimens over 2 years, it's 15 terabytes. It's big, but it's not 150 terabytes. So it's kind of okay for storage. My recommendations are try to be pragmatic and flexible. You can be happy with one image. We started imaging our objects sometimes with different views. So to have for a tooth, the occlusal view and a lateral view and a buccal, and it takes a lot of time. So we decided to stop with doing too many views for one object and have one good picture, maybe of the object. It's enough actually for collection-based purposes. And if a scientist has interest in other views, he or she can ask back or come to the collection and do it he or himself or herself. Be much less optimistic for time as you usually are. Be less optimistic. I'm kind of an optimistic person, and it's not good. No, it's okay. But yeah, I counted sometimes. Maybe. Well, I've seen Jean-Luc. You take pictures of your objects in 2 minutes. How do you do that? Yeah, I don't know. We can't make it. So yeah, we had counted with 10, 15 minutes sometimes for a classical picture. It takes more time, but probably because also the databasing and so on is taking a big part in this. So you should really, if your objects are special, or if you change from the formats from one object to the other, then you should really count much more time to take your pictures. And indeed, take a lot of time. Book your time also for databasing your object. It's not just like I'm gonna come, or with Torre we're going to come to different institutions. Some of you are here. We will ask you for the data. If your holotypes are already inventoried or in the database, we will ask you for these data. Probably there is some more work to be done because all the feeds are not are not complete, and so on and so forth. So yeah, take time and and just do it. Okay, I just want to thank Bastien Meneka here, who did these pictures of the drawers. It was before the SwissCollNet project started, and it's a big help now. It's really some sort of quick and dirty thing, very quick, but it's very practical. And I want to thank Torre Friesenhagen. I don't know who's Torre, but in the room somewhere. Yeah, he's doing these pictures and so on. It's a lot of work because of the different formats and so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Loïc. We have time for one question. Who would like to ask this question? I thought, Jean-Luc, you were going to ask about your competing time for imaging. There is one here, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks very much for a very good cross-cutting talk that touched to all the other good contributions. I have a plea and a kind of question. First, I think, and again, thanks for that emphasis, I don't think we take advantage of the digital photography being cheap enough yet. In terms of we've been encouraging all curators to just take handheld, cheap photographs every time they do anything with the collection, even before they start databasing, just to capture the state. And again, these discussions about being artistic with the problems, spirit preserved things which you need stacking or 3D or whatever. First, take a cheap picture just to document. So again, that would be my plea, and I think we should drive that home to all our people in charge of collections. Second kind of question, I think the challenge, apart from the many different questions to specific kinds of objects, is I'm afraid we risk building legacy again by these big numbers of images and media files. So the data management of images, I think, is more the bottleneck than just taking them. But what's your view on that?
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot of data. You don't want to speak to IT people about images on your servers. They're not so happy about it. It takes a lot of space and it costs a lot of money. So yeah, I haven't got any proper answer to this. I just thought it has to be started at some point, and we should produce images. There are a lot of solutions to store your data now on servers with relatively cheap rates, I would say, on CERN or Switch or these kind of things in Switzerland. Yeah, but I agree. This is an issue. Yeah, how you want to handle these data and where you store them and how much it costs and so on. And over the long term, how do you update them over the long term is also a big issue.
Yeah, I think pure storage isn't, as you said rightly, it's more the long-term management,
the update and
keeping track, making sure
some solutions
don't get lost.
Some solutions offer update of your files over time. Cost a little bit more, but it's possible. It's possible. And I agree. Take pictures of your specimens, whatever the quality actually of your at least of your drawers and so on. It's a great help. Yeah. Also for protocoling the standards of your collections.
Thank you.